The moment I dropped my wedding ring into the shrimp cocktail at the yacht club's annual Night on the Bay, you could have heard a pin drop over the live jazz quartet. But that wasn't the sound that made my blood run cold. It was my wife Vanessa's laugh, sharp and bright as broken glass, echoing from the marina dock where she'd disappeared 20 minutes earlier with Blake Rourke. My name is Eddie Masters, and I used to be funny for a living, stand-up comedy, back when I thought life's cruelties were material instead of reality. These days, I fix boats for rich people who treat me like I'm invisible, except when their engines won't start. Then, suddenly I'm their best friend, at least until the bill comes. "Eddie, what the hell are you doing?" Lila Morrison hissed from across our table, her perfectly manicured fingers clutching her martini like a weapon. She was Vanessa's best friend and office gossip queen, the kind of woman who could weaponize a whisper. I picked up the ring with a cocktail fork, wiped it clean with my napkin, and slipped it into my jacket pocket. "Just checking if it still fits," I said, forcing that old comedian's smile. Turns out it doesn't. The silence stretched like taffy. Mark Chen, Vanessa's coworker who'd been making cow eyes at her all evening, cleared his throat. "Maybe you should go find your wife." Maybe I should. I stood, straightening my one good suit, the navy blue one I'd worn to our wedding 8 years ago. It still fit, unlike apparently everything else in my life, but I think I'll let her finish her business meeting first. Mrs. Hawkins, our 70-something neighbor who somehow always ended up at these events despite living on a marine mechanics budget, caught my eye from the next table. She nodded toward the marina with the subtle urgency of someone who'd seen too much and said too little for too long. I walked through the crowd of semi-drunk socialites, past the ice sculptures and overpriced canapes, toward the floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the water. The dock lights illuminated 2 figures pressed against the railing of Blake's 40-foot yacht. Even from here, I could see Vanessa's red dress hiked up higher than any business discussion required. Enjoying the view? Detective Tom March appeared beside me, nursing a beer and looking as out of place as I felt. We'd gone to high school together, back when he was just Tommy and I was the class clown. "It's educational," I said. "I'm learning a lot about marine positions." Tom snorted. "You always were quick with the one-liners. How's business?" "Steady. Rich people's boats break down just as often as poor people's cars. They just pay more to fix them." I watched Blake's hands roam territory that used to be exclusively mine. Speaking of which, I should probably head home. Early day tomorrow. "Eddie," Tom's voice carried a warning I'd heard before, usually right before someone did something stupid. "Whatever you're thinking, I'm thinking my wife's networking skills are more hands-on than I realized." I turned away from the window. "Have a good evening, detective." The drive home took 15 minutes through the winding coastal roads of our little Maine town. 15 minutes to plan what I'd say when Vanessa came home with her hair messed up and her lipstick gone, spinning some story about late-night client consultations and traffic jams. Our Victorian house sat on Maple Street like a tired old man, all good bones and peeling paint. I'd been meaning to fix the shutters for 3 years, but boat season kept me busy from April to October, and winters were for the big repairs that paid the mortgage. I parked in our gravel driveway and noticed Vanessa's BMW wasn't there yet. Good. That gave me time to check something that had been nagging at me for weeks. Her work phone, the one she claimed was too sensitive to take to social events, sat charging on the kitchen counter. Vanessa was religious about keeping it close, except apparently when she was conducting business on Blake's yacht. The lock screen showed 3 missed calls from B and 2 text messages. I knew her passcode because I'd watched her type it 100 times. Our anniversary, 0814. The irony wasn't lost on me. The first message made my stomach drop. "Can't wait to finish what we started last week." Same hotel? The second one was worse. "Tell Eddie you're working late again. He's too stupid to figure it out anyway." I set the phone down carefully, my hands surprisingly steady. In my stand-up days, I'd learned that the best material came from the worst moments. The trick was finding the punchline before the pain hit. This felt like a setup without a punchline. I walked to my workshop in the converted garage, flipping on the fluorescent lights that hummed like angry wasps. My tools hung in neat rows on pegboard walls: wrenches, screwdrivers, marine electronics, everything organized with the precision of a man who fixed complex problems for a living. But some problems couldn't be fixed with tools. I pulled out my laptop and opened the shared calendar app Vanessa insisted we use for better communication. Her work schedule was color-coded in corporate blue, Client meetings, strategy sessions, late-night consultations. Lots of late-night consultations, I noticed. At least 3 per week for the past 2 months. Cross-referencing with Blake's real estate company website, I found his headshot grinning at me from the Our Team page. Blake Rourke, Senior Development Partner. 34 years old, divorced, drives a Tesla, and apparently specializes in developing more than just waterfront properties. The garage door rumbled open around midnight. I heard Vanessa's heels click across the concrete, then pause. Eddie? What are you doing out here so late? I looked up from my laptop, taking in her appearance with the clinical eye of a man cataloging evidence. Hair slightly mussed, despite obvious attempts to fix it. Lipstick gone, but not cleanly removed. There was still a trace on her chin. Her dress was wrinkled in places that suggested recent close contact. Working on the Henderson account, I said, which was technically true. I'd been researching the yacht Blake had pressed her against, which belonged to Robert Henderson, one of my regular customers. How was your meeting? Exhausting. She kicked off her heels, wincing. Blake's a demanding client, very hands-on. I bet he is. Something in my tone made her look at me more carefully. What's that supposed to mean? I closed the laptop and stood, stretching muscles that had been tense for hours. Nothing. Just that hands-on clients usually pay better. I hope he's worth the overtime. Vanessa's eyes narrowed. She'd always been quick to spot when someone was laughing at a joke she wasn't in on. You're being weird, Eddie. Weirder than usual. Just tired. I walked past her toward the house. I'm going to bed. Try not to wake me when you come up. I've got an early appointment. I made it halfway across the kitchen before she called after me. Eddie? Yeah? You left your ring in the shrimp bowl tonight. Lila texted me about it. I turned around slowly, my hand unconsciously moving to my naked ring finger. Did she mention why? She said you were acting strange, making everyone uncomfortable. Vanessa crossed her arms, and I recognized the stance from a dozen previous arguments. Attack mode. What's wrong with you lately? Maybe I'm just tired of being married to someone who thinks I'm too stupid to figure things out. The words hung in the air like smoke from a gun barrel. Vanessa's face went through several expressions: surprise, confusion, then something that looked almost like relief. What are you talking about? I pulled her work phone from my pocket and set it on the kitchen island between us. You left this behind. Blake called 3 times. He seemed worried about finishing what you started. For a moment, neither of us moved. Then Vanessa lunged for the phone, but I was quicker. 8 years of marriage had taught me her tells. Give me that. Why? It's just work, right? It's private client information. You have no right. I have every right. I'm your husband, or was anyway. I slipped the phone back into my pocket. Tell me, Van, how long has Blake been such a hands-on client? She stared at me for a long moment, and I could see the calculations happening behind her eyes. Deny everything and hope I didn't have proof? Admit to something minor and hope I'd settle for that? Or go nuclear and try to flip this back on me? She chose nuclear. You know what, Eddie? Yes, I'm sleeping with Blake. Yes, I've been lying about working late. And you know what else? I'm not sorry. Her voice rose with each word. Years of resentment, spilling out like water from a burst pipe. Do you want to know why? Enlighten me. Because I'm tired of being married to a failure. I'm tired of making excuses for why my husband fixes boats instead of owning them. I'm tired of pretending your little jokes are funny when everyone else just feels sorry for me. Each word hit like a physical blow, but I kept my face neutral. In comedy, timing was everything. The same was true for revenge. That's quite a speech, I said quietly. You practice that. I've been thinking it for 2 years. Only 2? I'm impressed by your restraint. I turned toward the stairs. I'll sleep in the guest room tonight. We can figure out the details tomorrow. Eddie, wait. I stopped, but didn't turn around. I didn't mean for it to happen this way. I need more than this. More than us. I know, I said. The question is, what are you willing to pay for it? I didn't sleep that night. Instead, I sat in the guest room with my laptop, learning everything I could about Blake Rourke and his development company. By sunrise, I had a pretty clear picture of my wife's new boyfriend, Blake was everything I wasn't: successful, flashy, and apparently irresistible to married women. His divorce 2 years ago had been messy, according to the local newspaper archives I found online. His ex-wife had cited habitual infidelity and emotional cruelty. The settlement had cost him half his assets, but he'd bounced back quickly. Too quickly, maybe. I made coffee and waited. Vanessa came downstairs around 7, dressed for work in a sharp black suit that probably cost more than I made in a week. She moved around the kitchen like we were strangers sharing a hotel breakfast bar. "We should talk," she said finally. "Should we? About what?" "About how we're going to handle this. Practically, I mean." She poured coffee into her travel mug, not meeting my eyes. "I don't want to hurt you more than necessary." "How considerate." "I'm serious, Eddie. We can do this the easy way or the hard way. Your choice." I studied her face, looking for any trace of the woman I'd married. She was still beautiful, more so now than when we'd met, if I was being honest. Success suited her. But there was something cold in her expression, something calculating that I'd never noticed before. Or maybe I'd just chosen not to see it. "What's the easy way?" I asked. "We file for divorce, quietly. No fault, irreconcilable differences. We split everything 50-50, sell the house, move on with our lives." She sipped her coffee, watching me over the rim. "I keep my reputation intact. You keep your dignity. Everyone wins. And the hard way?" Her smile was sharp enough to cut glass. "You try to fight me, and I make your life very difficult. I have resources, Eddie. I have connections. I can make sure every boat owner in this town knows exactly what kind of man they're dealing with." "What kind of man is that?" "The kind who can't satisfy his wife. The kind who drives her into another man's arms because he's too pathetic to hold on to what he has." I set down my coffee cup very carefully. "That's your story?" "That's the story that matters. The one people will believe." She checked her watch, a Rolex that Blake had probably bought her. "I have to go. Think about what I said." After she left, I sat in the kitchen for a long time, listening to the house settle around me. 8 years of marriage reduced to a real estate transaction and a reputation management problem. But Vanessa had made one crucial mistake. She'd underestimated me. I called in sick to work, the first time in 3 years, and drove to Barb's Tavern on the other side of town. It was the kind of place where working men drank beer and talked about real problems, not the sanitized social club atmosphere of the yacht club. Barb herself was behind the bar, a 60-year-old woman who'd seen everything and judged nothing. She'd been serving drinks in this town for 30 years, which made her the closest thing we had to a living newspaper. "Eddie Masters," she said, pulling a beer without being asked. "You look like hell. Feel worse." I took a long drink, letting the cold beer wash away the taste of the morning's conversation. "Barb, what do you know about Blake Rourke?" Her eyebrows went up. "That's a loaded question. You sure you want the answer?" "I'm sure." She leaned across the bar, lowering her voice, even though we were the only ones in the place. "Blake's what my grandmother would have called a tomcat. Can't keep it in his pants, especially when it comes to other men's wives. His divorce was just the tip of the iceberg." "How so?" "Word is, he's been working his way through the yacht club membership like it's a buffet. Married women only. Says it's less complicated because they can't make demands." Barb shook her head. "Man's got no shame." "Any names? You really want to know?" I nodded. "Jennifer Walsh, while her husband was deployed overseas. Sarah Morrison, before she and Dave moved to Florida. And now." She trailed off, giving me a sympathetic look. "Now, Vanessa." "I'm sorry, Eddie. I know this can't be easy." I finished my beer and left a 20 on the bar. "Thanks, Barb. This conversation never happened." "What conversation?" From the tavern, I drove to the marina where I kept my boat, a 20-foot center console that I'd restored myself. It wasn't much to look at, but it was mine, and it ran like a dream. I needed to think, and I always thought better on the water. The Atlantic was calm that morning, the kind of day that made you remember why people paid so much to live near the ocean. I anchored in a quiet cove about 2 miles offshore and tried to process everything that had happened in the last 12 hours. My marriage was over. That much was clear. The question was what I was going to do about it. Vanessa thought she held all the cards, The money, the connections, the social standing. But she'd forgotten something important about me. I might have been a failed comedian, but I'd learned to read people, to find their weaknesses and exploit them for laughs. The skills were the same, only the stakes had changed. I pulled out my phone and called Richie Kowalski, my assistant at the marina. Richie was 28, built like a linebacker, and had the kind of loyalty you couldn't buy. Boss? I thought you were sick. I am, sick of being played for a fool. Richie, I need a favor. Name it. I need you to keep an eye on someone for me. Blake Rourke drives a white Tesla. I want to know where he goes, who he sees, what he does. There was a pause. This about your wife? Yeah. Say no more. I got a cousin works security at the hotel downtown. Another one does landscaping for those fancy condos where Blake lives. I'll make some calls. Thanks, Rich. I owe you. You don't owe me nothing, boss. You gave me a job when nobody else would. Time to return the favor. I spent the rest of the day on the water, letting the sun and salt air clear my head. By the time I headed back to shore, I had the beginnings of a plan. Vanessa wanted to play hardball? Fine. But she was about to learn that even failed comedians could deliver a punchline. I got home around 6 to find Vanessa's BMW in the driveway. She was in the kitchen, making dinner like nothing had happened. The domestic scene would have been touching if I hadn't known she was probably texting Blake between stirring the sauce. How was your day? She asked without looking up. Educational. Yours? Busy. Blake's project is getting complicated. I bet it is. She turned around, studying my face. You seem different. Do I? Calmer. I thought you'd be more upset. I shrugged. What's the point? You made your choice. Now I have to make mine. Which is? I haven't decided yet. We ate dinner in relative silence, like actors playing roles we'd outgrown. Vanessa kept checking her phone, probably waiting for Blake to confirm their next rendezvous. I made mental notes about her behavior, cataloging details I'd need later. After dinner, she went upstairs to work on some presentations. I cleaned up the kitchen and then went to my workshop, where I had some research to do. Richie had already sent me a text. B visited hotel 3 to 5 p.m., same room as last week. My cousin says he's got it reserved every Tuesday and Thursday. Tuesdays and Thursdays. The same days Vanessa had been working late. I opened my laptop and started digging deeper into Blake's business dealings. His development company had been involved in several major projects around town, but something didn't add up. The timeline was wrong, the financing seemed shaky, and there were too many permits approved too quickly. Either Blake was very good at his job, or he had help. I was still researching when my phone rang. The caller ID showed Mrs. Hawkins' number. Eddie, dear, I hope I'm not calling too late. Not at all, Mrs. Hawkins. What can I do for you? I've been thinking about last night at the yacht club, about what I saw. Her voice was careful, the way people talked when they had bad news to deliver. I think you should know that this isn't the first time. What do you mean? I've seen your wife with that Blake fellow before. Several times, actually. At the marina, at that new restaurant downtown, in the parking lot of the Seaside Inn. She paused. I didn't want to say anything, but after last night... How long, Mrs. Hawkins? At least 2 months. Maybe longer. 2 months. While I was working 14-hour days to save money for the vacation Vanessa had been planning. While I was fixing her car and cooking her dinner and pretending everything was fine. Thank you for telling me. I'm sorry, Eddie. I know this must be very difficult. After she hung up, I sat in the quiet workshop, surrounded by tools and half-finished projects. 2 months of lies. 2 months of coming home to a woman who was counting down the hours until she could be with someone else. But Vanessa had made another mistake. She thought I was just a simple mechanic, too stupid and too weak to fight back. She was about to learn otherwise. The next morning brought rain, and a text from my old comedy buddy Mike Santos. Drinks tonight? Haven't seen you in forever. Mike and I had worked the Boston comedy circuit together 10 years ago, back when I thought I might actually make it. He'd given up the dream around the same time I had, but he'd landed better. Corporate training seminars that paid 6 figures to teach executives how to be funny in presentations. We met at O'Malley's, a sports bar halfway between our houses. Mike was already there when I arrived, looking successful in his expensive suit and designer glasses. Eddie! Jesus, you look like death warmed over. He stood to give me a backslapping hug that felt more obligatory than friendly. "What's going on, man?" I ordered a beer and gave him the short version. Vanessa was cheating. We were getting divorced. Life was complicated. Mike listened with the kind of focused attention that meant he was already formulating advice. "Shit, Eddie, I'm sorry. I had no idea things were that bad. They weren't. Or I didn't think they were." I took a drink. "Turns out I was wrong about a lot of things. Have you thought about counseling? Marriage therapy? Hard to counsel someone back from another man's bed." Mike winced. "Right. So what's your plan?" I studied his face, looking for genuine concern. What I saw instead was the careful expression of someone who was already calculating how this conversation would play at his next dinner party. "I don't know yet. Vanessa wants a quiet divorce. 50-50 split, everyone walks away clean." That doesn't sound terrible. I mean, given the circumstances. Doesn't it? "Eddie, look, I know this sucks, but maybe it's for the best. You and Vanessa, you guys were never really a good match." The words hit like a slap. "What's that supposed to mean?" Mike shifted uncomfortably. "Come on, man. You had to see it. She's ambitious, successful, moving up in the world. And you're," he gestured vaguely, "you're fixing boats." "There's nothing wrong with fixing boats." "No, of course not. It's honest work. But let's be real. Vanessa needs someone on her level, someone who can keep up with her, professionally, socially. Someone like Blake Rourke. I don't know Blake personally, but from what I hear, he's doing very well. Real estate development, right? That's a good field." I stared at him. "Are you seriously taking her side right now?" "I'm not taking anyone's side. I'm just saying maybe this is an opportunity for both of you to find something better suited to who you are. Who I am. Yeah, I mean, when's the last time you were really happy? And I don't mean content or comfortable. I mean actually happy." The question caught me off guard because I couldn't immediately answer it. When had I last been happy? Before the marriage started feeling like work? Before I realized my wife saw me as a burden instead of a partner? "That's not the point," I said finally. "Isn't it? Look, Eddie, I've been where you are. The divorce, the self-doubt, the whole thing. Trust me. Once you get through the initial shock, you'll realize this is the best thing that could have happened." "When were you divorced?" Mike looked confused. "I wasn't, but I've seen plenty of friends go through it." I finished my beer and stood up. "Thanks for the advice, Mike. Really insightful." "Eddie, don't be like that. I'm trying to help." "Are you? Or are you trying to make yourself feel better about writing me off?" "What are you talking about?" "I'm talking about the fact that you haven't called me in 6 months. I'm talking about the fact that you're more concerned about Vanessa's career prospects than the fact that she's been lying to me for 2 months." I pulled out my wallet and left money on the table. "I'm talking about the fact that you're not really my friend anymore, are you?" Mike's face flushed. "That's not fair, isn't it? When's the last time you invited me to one of your parties? When's the last time you asked about my life without immediately trying to fix it or explain why it's not good enough?" He stopped, and I could see the moment he realized I was right. That's what I thought. I headed for the door, then turned back. "For what it's worth, Mike, you're probably right. Vanessa does deserve someone on her level. The question is, what level is that?" I left him sitting there and drove home through the rain, my phone buzzing with text messages I didn't bother to read. The house was dark when I got there. Vanessa was working late again, probably celebrating her successful manipulation of another situation. I went to my workshop and called Richie. "What did you find out?" "Plenty. Blake's got a standing reservation at the Seaside Inn every Tuesday and Thursday, like I said. But here's the interesting part. He's not paying for it." "What do you mean?" "My cousin at the hotel says the rooms are comped, part of some deal Blake made with the owner about developing the waterfront property behind the hotel. That's not unusual for business relationships." "Maybe not, but get this. The hotel owner's wife has been seen leaving those same rooms on Monday and Wednesday afternoons." I sat up straighter. "Blake seeing the hotel owner's wife too?" "Looks like it. And there's more. My cousin who does landscaping says Blake's been having a lot of female visitors at his condo. Different cars, different days, but always during business hours when husbands would be at work. How many different women? At least 4 that he's seen. Maybe more. I leaned back in my chair, processing this information. Blake wasn't just having an affair with Vanessa. He was running a one-man escort service for bored housewives. Richie, I need you to do something else for me. Name it. I need you to follow Blake tomorrow, discreetly. I want to know everywhere he goes, everyone he sees. You got it, boss. What are you planning? I'm planning to give my wife exactly what she deserves. After I hung up, I opened my laptop and started making a list. Blake's pattern was becoming clear. He targeted married women with money and social status, women who could help his business while satisfying his ego. He was smart about it, careful to keep each relationship compartmentalized, but every system had weaknesses, and I was very good at finding weaknesses. I was still working when Vanessa came home around 11. She looked tired but satisfied, like someone who'd had a productive day. She probably had. You're up late, she said, standing in the workshop doorway. Couldn't sleep. Eddie, about last night. Don't. I didn't look up from my laptop. We said everything we needed to say. I know you're angry. I'm not angry, Vanessa. I'm disappointed. There's a difference. She stepped into the workshop, and I caught a whiff of expensive cologne that definitely wasn't mine. Disappointed in me? Disappointed in myself for not seeing who you really were sooner. And who am I, exactly? I finally looked at her, really looked at her. She was still beautiful, still successful, still everything I'd thought I wanted when we got married. But now I could see the calculation behind her eyes, the way she was already planning her next move. You're someone who thinks other people exist to serve your ambitions. You're someone who believes that wanting something gives you the right to take it, regardless of who gets hurt. I closed the laptop. You're someone who mistakes ruthlessness for strength. That's not true, isn't it? Tell me, Van, when you decided to start sleeping with Blake, did you think about me at all? Did you consider what it might do to our marriage? Or were you too busy thinking about what he could do for your career? She didn't answer, which was answer enough. That's what I thought. I stood up. I'm going to bed. Try not to wake me when you come up. Eddie, wait. I stopped at the door. I never meant to hurt you. No, I said quietly. You just didn't care if you did. That's worse. The next morning, I called in sick again and drove to the yacht club. It was early enough that only the staff was there, preparing for the lunch crowd. I found the manager, a thin man named Peterson, who'd always treated me with the polite condescension reserved for service providers. Mr. Masters, what can I do for you? I need to ask you about Blake Rourke. Peterson's expression became guarded. What about him? I understand he's been using the club facilities for business meetings. Mr. Rourke is a valued member. His business dealings are his own affair. Even when they involve other members' wives? Peterson's face went pale. I'm not sure what you're implying. I'm not implying anything. I'm stating a fact. Blake has been conducting affairs with married women, using your club as a meeting place. I pulled out my phone and showed him a photo Richie had taken of Blake and Vanessa on the dock. This was taken 3 nights ago. Peterson studied the photo, his jaw tightening. What do you want, Mr. Masters? I want you to revoke his membership. I can't do that without cause. You have cause. Your club has rules about conduct unbecoming a member. Seducing other members' wives seems like it would qualify. Peterson was quiet for a long moment. And if I don't? Then I take this photo, along with several others, to every member of your board. I also take them to the local newspaper, along with the story about how the yacht club has become a hunting ground for predators. That's blackmail. No, that's consequences. Blake made choices. Now he gets to live with them. Peterson sighed. I'll need more than one photo. I can get you more. Then we'll schedule a disciplinary hearing for next week. I left the yacht club feeling better than I had in days. It was a small victory, but it was a start. Blake was about to learn that actions had consequences. And Vanessa was about to learn that her husband wasn't as stupid or as weak as she'd assumed. The real game was just beginning. Richie called me at noon with an update that made my blood boil. Boss, you're not going to believe this, Blake just left the Seaside Inn with some blonde woman, not your wife. They went to lunch at Chez Laurent, that fancy French place downtown. Did you get photos? Better. I got video. They were all over each other in the parking lot. Send it to me. Already did. But Eddie, there's more. After lunch, they went shopping. Blake bought her jewelry at Tiffany's. Dropped about $5,000 from what I could see. $5,000 on jewelry for his side piece, while my wife thought she was his only affair. The irony would have been funny if it wasn't so pathetic. Keep following him. I want to know everything. I was still processing this information when Vanessa texted. Working late again tonight. Don't wait up. Working late. Right. I drove to Chez Laurent and found a parking spot across the street. Blake's white Tesla was still there, along with a red BMW convertible that probably belonged to his lunch companion. Through the restaurant's large windows, I could see them at a corner table. Blake leaning in close while the blonde woman laughed at something he was saying. The same moves he'd used on Vanessa. The same routine he'd probably used on all of them. I took photos with my phone, then settled in to wait. They emerged around 2:30. Blake's arm around the woman's waist as they walked to their cars. She was younger than Vanessa, maybe early 30s, with the kind of artificial perfection that screamed expensive maintenance. They kissed goodbye in the parking lot, a long, passionate kiss that left no doubt about their relationship. Then, Blake got in his Tesla and drove toward his condo, while the blonde headed in the opposite direction. I followed Blake. His condo was in Harborview Estates, a new development that screamed nouveau riche. All glass and steel and pretentious architecture, designed to impress people who confused expensive with tasteful. I parked across the street and called Vanessa. Eddie? What's wrong? I'm in a meeting. Are you? What kind of meeting? Strategy session with the development team. Why? Just wondering. When do you think you'll be home? Late. Probably not until after midnight. We have a lot to cover. I'm sure you do. There was a pause. You're acting strange again. Am I? Sorry, I'll let you get back to your meeting. I hung up and settled in to watch Blake's condo. At 4:15, a familiar BMW pulled into the parking lot. Vanessa got out, looking around nervously, before hurrying to the building entrance. So much for the strategy session. I waited another hour, taking photos of the building and the parking lot, then drove home. I had work to do. My laptop was full of information about Blake's business dealings, and the more I dug, the more interesting it became. His development company was leveraged to the hilt, surviving on a combination of bank loans and private investors. But the projects he was working on were all high-risk ventures that depended on specific zoning changes and permit approvals. Changes and approvals that had been rubber-stamped with unusual speed. I cross-referenced the approval dates with the timeline of Blake's affairs and found a pattern. Every major permit approval coincided with Blake beginning a new relationship with a married woman, whose husband had connections to the city planning office or the zoning board. Blake wasn't just collecting trophies. He was building a network of influence, using sex to grease the wheels of local politics. And Vanessa was just another tool in his toolkit. I was still researching when my phone rang. Detective Tom March's number showed on the caller ID. Eddie, we need to talk. About what? About the complaint Blake Rourke filed against you this afternoon. My stomach dropped. What complaint? Harassment, stalking, threats. He says you've been following him, taking pictures, trying to intimidate him. Tom's voice was professional but concerned. Tell me he's lying, Eddie. He's lying about the threats and intimidation. The rest, I sighed. The rest is complicated. Jesus, Eddie, what are you doing? I'm gathering evidence of my wife's affair for divorce proceedings. That's not illegal. It is if you're stalking the guy. Blake says you confronted him at his condo, threatened to hurt him if he didn't stay away from Vanessa. That's complete bullshit, Tom. I never went near his condo, and I certainly never threatened him. Can you prove that? Can he prove I did? There was a pause. Eddie, I've known you since high school. You're not a violent guy. But this situation, it's making people nervous. Blake's got connections, and he's making noise about getting a restraining order. Let him try. I haven't done anything illegal. Maybe not, but you're walking a thin line. Be careful. After Tom hung up, I sat in the dark workshop thinking. Blake was smarter than I'd given him credit for. By filing a complaint, he was trying to paint me as the unstable husband, the dangerous ex who couldn't accept reality. But he'd made a mistake. He'd assumed I was operating alone. I called Mrs. Hawkins. "Eddie, dear, how are you holding up?" "I've been better." "Mrs. Hawkins, I need to ask you a favor." "Of course. What can I do?" "I need you to make some phone calls to the other wives at the yacht club. I think they should know what kind of man Blake Rourke really is." "What do you mean?" I told her about Blake's pattern of affairs, about the hotel rooms and the jewelry, and the systematic seduction of married women. Mrs. Hawkins listened without interruption, making small sounds of disapproval. "That's terrible, Eddie. Those poor women. The thing is, some of them might not realize they're not his only affair. They might think they're special. Like Vanessa. Like Vanessa. What do you want me to do? Just share what you know. Let people draw their own conclusions." Mrs. Hawkins was quiet for a moment. "You know, dear, I've been thinking about what I saw at the yacht club the other night. It reminded me of something that happened about 6 months ago." "What?" "I saw Blake with Jennifer Walsh at the marina. Her husband was deployed at the time, and she was very upset about something. Blake was comforting her, very attentive. She paused. At the time, I thought he was just being kind. Now I wonder. Jennifer Walsh moved to California with her husband when he got back from deployment. Yes, rather suddenly. There were rumors about marriage problems. Another piece of the puzzle clicked into place. Mrs. Hawkins, do you still have Jennifer's phone number?" "I believe so. Why?" "I think she might want to know she wasn't Blake's only victim." The next morning, I drove to the marina early and found Peterson waiting for me at the yacht club. "Mr. Masters, we need to talk." "About Blake's disciplinary hearing?" "About the fact that there won't be one." Peterson looked uncomfortable. "Blake withdrew his membership this morning. Said he was too busy to participate in club activities." "Convenient." "He also made some threats about legal action if we pursued the matter. Defamation, harassment, that sort of thing." I studied Peterson's face. "He got to you. He made a compelling case that this was a personal vendetta on your part, that you were using the club to settle a domestic dispute. And you believed him?" Peterson shrugged. "I believe that fighting him would be expensive and messy. The club can't afford that kind of publicity, so he gets away with it. He's no longer our problem. That's good enough for me." I left the yacht club feeling frustrated, but not defeated. Blake had won this round, but the game was far from over. My phone buzzed with a text from Richie. "Blake's at the Seaside Inn again. Same room, different woman. This one drives a green Lexus. Different woman." Blake was maintaining his usual schedule even while dealing with the complaint he'd filed against me. Either he was incredibly arrogant or incredibly stupid. Maybe both. I drove to the Seaside Inn and parked where I could see Blake's Tesla. I didn't have to wait long. At 3:30, Blake emerged with a brunette woman in her 40s, both of them looking satisfied with their afternoon's work. I recognized her immediately. Carol Henderson, wife of the yacht owner whose boat I serviced regularly. Her husband was a city councilman who'd been instrumental in approving Blake's waterfront development project. The pieces were all there. I just needed to put them together in a way that would destroy Blake's carefully constructed network. I called Jennifer Walsh in California. "Jennifer, this is Eddie Masters. I'm married to Vanessa. We met at the yacht club a few times." "Oh, hi, Eddie. Is everything okay?" "Not really. I'm calling because I think we have something in common. We've both been hurt by Blake Rourke." There was a long silence. "I don't know what you mean." "Jennifer, I know about the affair. I know Blake was seeing you while your husband was deployed. I know it ended badly." "How do you—" She stopped. "Is Blake seeing your wife?" "Among others." "Others?" "At least 4 that I know of. Maybe more. He targets married women whose husbands have political or business connections. He uses the affairs to influence city planning decisions." Jennifer was quiet for a long moment. "That bastard. I'm putting together evidence to expose him. Would you be willing to help?" "What do you need?" "Your story. The truth about what happened between you and Blake and how it affected your marriage." "Eddie, I can't. My husband and I are just starting to rebuild our relationship. If this comes out, it doesn't have to come out publicly, but I need someone who can verify Blake's pattern of behavior." Jennifer sighed. "Let me think about it. Can I call you back?" "Of course." After she hung up, I sat in my car outside the Seaside Inn, watching Blake's Tesla in the parking lot. He thought he was untouchable, protected by his wealth and connections and the shame of his victims. He was about to learn otherwise. My phone buzzed with a call from Vanessa. "Eddie, we need to talk. Tonight." "About what?" "About the restraining order Blake is filing against you." "Let him file it. I haven't done anything wrong." "Haven't you?" "He has photos of you following him, Eddie. Photos of you parked outside his condo and the hotel where he does business." Business? Is that what we're calling it now? Don't be crude. I'm being accurate. Blake isn't conducting business in hotel rooms, Vanessa. He's conducting affairs. Multiple affairs. With multiple married women. That's not true. Isn't it? When's the last time you were his only afternoon appointment? Silence. That's what I thought. Vanessa, you're not special to Blake. You're just useful. Your connections at the marketing agency, your social status, your willingness to lie for him. That's all he cares about. You're wrong. Am I? Ask him about the blonde he took to lunch yesterday. Ask him about Carol Henderson. Ask him about the jewelry he bought for someone who isn't you. How do you... She stopped. You really have been following him. I've been documenting his pattern of behavior. There's a difference. Eddie, you need to stop this. You're embarrassing yourself. The only thing embarrassing me is my wife's inability to see she's being used. I hung up and drove home, my anger building with each mile. Vanessa was so desperate to believe she was special that she was ignoring obvious evidence to the contrary. But that was about to change. I had one more card to play, and it was going to destroy Blake's carefully constructed house of cards. The question was whether it would destroy my marriage in the process. Not that there was much left to destroy. The call came at 6 a.m. from Jennifer Walsh in California. Eddie, I've been thinking about what you said, about Blake targeting married women for business purposes. Her voice was shaky but determined. I want to help. Are you sure? I'm sure. That son of a bitch destroyed my marriage. If he's doing it to other women, they deserve to know the truth. What can you tell me? Everything. The whole sordid story. Jennifer took a deep breath. Blake approached me at the yacht club while my husband was deployed. Said he was lonely, that he understood what military wives went through. He was charming, attentive, everything my absent husband wasn't. How long did it last? 3 months. He'd take me to expensive restaurants, buy me gifts, make me feel special. But it wasn't random, Eddie. He always asked questions about my husband's work, about the people he knew in city government. What kind of questions? About zoning laws, permit processes, which council members could be influenced. At the time, I thought he was just making conversation. Now I realize he was gathering intelligence. Did you give him information? I gave him names, phone numbers, details about my husband's contacts in the planning department. Blake said he wanted to make sure his development projects would benefit the community. She laughed bitterly. I was so stupid. You weren't stupid. You were manipulated by an expert. The worst part was how it ended. As soon as Blake got the permits he needed for his waterfront project, he started pulling away. Fewer calls, canceled dates, obvious lies about being busy. When I confronted him, he told me it had been fun, but he was ready to move on. That's when your marriage fell apart? My husband came home early from deployment and found me crying over Blake. I told him everything, thinking honesty would help us heal. Instead, it destroyed us. We're still in counseling, trying to rebuild trust that Blake shattered. I felt a surge of anger on her behalf. Jennifer, would you be willing to put this in writing? If it helps stop him from hurting other women? Absolutely. After Jennifer hung up, I sat in my kitchen drinking coffee and planning my next move. Blake's pattern was clear. Identify vulnerable married women, seduce them, extract useful information, then discard them when they were no longer useful. But he'd made a crucial mistake with Vanessa. He'd assumed she was like the others, a lonely housewife looking for excitement. Instead, he'd chosen a woman with her own agenda, someone who thought she was playing him as much as he was playing her. Neither of them realized I was playing both of them. My phone buzzed with a text from Richie. Blake's meeting someone at the marina at 10 a.m. Looks like business, not pleasure. 3 guys in expensive suits. Interesting. Blake was meeting with investors or partners. probably to discuss his next development project. I wondered if they knew how he'd obtain permits for his current projects. I drove to the marina and parked where I could observe Blake's meeting without being seen. Through binoculars, I watched him shake hands with 3 men I didn't recognize, all of them carrying briefcases and looking serious. They talked for about an hour, pointing at various spots along the waterfront and consulting what looked like architectural drawings. Blake was animated, clearly trying to sell them on something big. After the men left, Blake stood alone on the dock, making phone calls. I was too far away to hear what he was saying, but his body language suggested frustration. My phone rang. Vanessa. "Eddie, where are you?" "Running errands." "Why?" "Blake wants to meet with you." "Does he now?" "He thinks you two should talk, man to man. Clear the air." "Where and when?" "Tonight at 7, the Anchor Bar on Harper Street." The Anchor Bar was a dive on the wrong side of town, the kind of place where conversations weren't overheard and security cameras were broken more often than they worked. Not exactly neutral territory. Tell him I'll be there. "Eddie, please don't do anything stupid." "Define stupid." "You know what I mean." "Actually, I don't. But I'll try to keep my stupidity to a minimum." I spent the afternoon preparing for the meeting. Blake thought he was setting a trap, choosing a location where he could intimidate me without witnesses. What he didn't know was that I'd been planning this confrontation for days. The Anchor Bar was exactly what I'd expected. Dim lighting, sticky floors, and a clientele that minded their own business. Blake was already there when I arrived, sitting at a corner table with a beer he obviously hadn't touched. He looked nervous, which was interesting. For someone who'd filed harassment charges against me, he seemed awfully uncomfortable about this meeting. "Eddie, thanks for coming." "Blake." I sat down across from him, noting the way his eyes darted toward the exit. "You wanted to talk?" "I want to clear the air between us. This whole situation has gotten out of hand." "Has it?" "Look, I know you're upset about Vanessa. I get it. But what's happening between us, it's not about you. Isn't it?" Blake leaned forward, trying to project sincerity. "Vanessa and I have a connection, a professional relationship that developed into something personal. It wasn't planned, it just happened. Like it just happened with Jennifer Walsh and Carol Henderson and the blonde you took to lunch yesterday." Blake's face went pale. "I don't know what you're talking about." "Sure you do. You've got a system, Blake. Target married women whose husbands have useful connections. Seduce them, extract information, use their relationships to grease the wheels for your development projects. Then discard them when they're no longer useful. That's ridiculous." "Is it?" Jennifer Walsh's husband was on the city council when you needed permits for the waterfront project. Carol Henderson's husband owns the yacht you use for romantic encounters. The blonde from yesterday, I'm betting your husband has something you need for your next project. Blake's jaw tightened. "You're fishing." "Am I?" "Let's talk about Vanessa then. What useful connections does she have?" "Her marketing agency handles promotional campaigns for city events. Her boss sits on the tourism board. Her college roommate works in the mayor's office." I smiled. "Quite a network for someone you just happened to fall for." "You're paranoid. I'm thorough. There's a difference." Blake stood up abruptly. "This conversation is over." "Sit down, Blake. We're not finished." "Actually, we are." "And Eddie, this little stalking campaign of yours needs to stop. The restraining order will be approved Monday morning. If you come near me or Vanessa again, you'll be arrested." "Vanessa's still my wife." "Not for long." Blake headed for the door, but I wasn't done with him yet. "Blake?" He turned around. "You might want to check with your investors before you celebrate." "I had an interesting conversation with Jennifer Walsh this morning. She's very eager to tell people about your business methods." Blake's face went white. "You're bluffing." "Am I?" "She's putting together a detailed statement about your relationship, including the information you extracted from her about her husband's contacts in city government. I'm betting Carol Henderson would be interested in reading it." "You can't prove anything." "I don't have to prove anything. I just have to create doubt." "How long do you think your investors will stick around once they hear about your methods? How long before the city council starts reviewing those permits you obtained so easily?" Blake took a step toward me, his hands clenched into fists. "You're making a big mistake, Eddie." "The only mistake I made was trusting my wife, but I'm fixing that. If you think ruining me will bring Vanessa back, you're delusional. I don't want Vanessa back. I want justice. Blake stared at me for a long moment, then turned and walked out of the bar. I sat there for a few minutes, finishing my beer and thinking about what came next. Blake was scared, which meant he was dangerous. Cornered animals did unpredictable things, and Blake had too much to lose to go quietly. But I was ready for whatever he threw at me. My phone buzzed with a text from Vanessa. How did it go? I typed back, ask your boyfriend. She called immediately. Eddie, what did you do? I told him the truth about Jennifer Walsh, about Carol Henderson, about his pattern of seducing married women for business purposes. That's not... Blake wouldn't... Wouldn't what? Use you? Manipulate you? Extract information from you about your business contacts? I laughed. Vanessa, you're smarter than this. Or you used to be. Blake loves me. Blake loves what you can do for him. The question is, what happens when he doesn't need you anymore? Silence. Think about it, Van. When's the last time Blake asked you about your work, about your contacts, about people you know who might be useful to his business? More silence. That's what I thought. You're not his girlfriend, Vanessa. You're his asset, and assets get liquidated when they're no longer profitable. I hung up and drove home, feeling better than I had in weeks. Blake's carefully constructed world was starting to crumble, and Vanessa was finally beginning to see the truth about her lover. But the game wasn't over yet. Blake had one more move to make, and I was betting it would be desperate. Desperate men made mistakes, and I was very good at capitalizing on mistakes. I woke up Saturday morning to find my workshop trashed. Tools scattered across the floor, equipment overturned, my laptop smashed beyond repair. Someone had taken a crowbar to everything I owned, methodically destroying 8 years of accumulated equipment and projects. But they'd missed the most important thing: the backup drive hidden in my toolbox, containing copies of all my research on Blake's business dealings and affairs. I called Detective March. Jesus, Eddie, when did this happen? Sometime after midnight. I was upstairs asleep. Tom walked through the wreckage, taking photos and making notes. Any idea who might have done this? I've got a pretty good idea. Blake? Or someone working for him. This isn't random vandalism, Tom. This is targeted intimidation. Can you prove Blake was involved? Not directly, but the timing's suspicious. We had a confrontation last night, and this morning my workshop is destroyed. Tom sighed. Eddie, I know you think Blake's some kind of criminal mastermind, but breaking and entering isn't his style. The guy's a real estate developer, not a thug. Real estate developers can hire thugs. Do you have any evidence of that? I looked around at the destruction, feeling frustrated and angry. What would you accept as evidence, Tom? A signed confession? Fingerprints would be nice. Security footage, witnesses, actual evidence. Blake filed a harassment complaint against me to establish a paper trail. Now my property gets vandalized and you don't see a connection? I see a coincidence. That's not the same thing. After Tom left, I called my insurance company and started the process of filing a claim. Then I called Richie and asked him to come over. Holy shit, boss, they really did a number on this place. Yeah. The question is, what were they looking for? Your research on Blake? Maybe. Or maybe they just wanted to send a message. Richie picked up a broken wrench, examining it with the eye of someone who understood tools. This wasn't random, Eddie. Whoever did this knew exactly what they were doing. They hit the expensive stuff first, the diagnostic equipment, the computer, the precision tools. Professional job? Or someone with experience destroying workshops. We spent the morning cataloging the damage and salvaging what we could. Most of my equipment was beyond repair, but some of the hand tools were still usable. Around noon, Mrs. Hawkins appeared at my door with a casserole and a worried expression. Eddie, dear, I heard about the break-in. Are you all right? I'm fine, Mrs. Hawkins. Just angry. I feel terrible. If I'd been watching more carefully. This isn't your fault. She set the casserole on my kitchen counter and turned to face me. Eddie, there's something I need to tell you. About last night. What about it? I saw a car parked on Elm Street around 11:30. Dark sedan, tinted windows. It sat there for about an hour, then drove away. Did you get a license plate? I'm afraid not. But I did notice something odd. The car came back around 2 a.m. and parked in the same spot. Someone got out and walked toward your house. Did you see who it was? Too dark, and they were wearing a hood. But they were carrying something, a bag or a toolbox. Why didn't you call the police? Mrs. Hawkins looked embarrassed. I thought it might be you, working late in your shop. It wasn't until this morning that I realized, it's okay. You couldn't have known. There's something else. The car had a parking sticker in the rear window. One of those permits for the Harborview Estates complex. Blake's complex. I thanked Mrs. Hawkins and called Tom March back. A parking sticker isn't evidence, Eddie. It's a connection. Someone from Blake's building was here last night. Someone from a building with 200 residents? That's not exactly narrowing it down. Tom, how much evidence do you need? Blake threatens me. My workshop gets trashed by someone from his building. Connect the dots. I need more than dots, Eddie. I need proof. After Tom hung up, I sat in my destroyed workshop, thinking about my next move. Blake had escalated the conflict, probably hoping to intimidate me into backing down. Instead, he'd just given me the motivation I needed to finish what I'd started. I called Jennifer Walsh. Jennifer, I need that statement we talked about tonight. What's wrong? You sound different. Blake's getting desperate. He had my workshop vandalized last night. Oh my God. Are you okay? I'm fine. But this proves Blake's more dangerous than we thought. The sooner we expose him, the safer everyone will be. I'll email you the statement this afternoon, Eddie. Be careful. If Blake's willing to destroy your property, he might be willing to do worse. I'm counting on it. After Jennifer hung up, I called the 3 investors I'd seen meeting with Blake at the marina. It took some detective work, but I managed to identify them through their business cards, which Blake had left scattered on his car dashboard. The first 2 calls went to voicemail. The third was answered by a man named Robert Chen, senior partner at Chen Development Group. Mr. Chen, my name is Eddie Masters. I have information about Blake Rourke that I think you should know. What kind of information? Information about how he obtains permits for his development projects. There was a pause. I'm listening. Blake has been conducting affairs with married women whose husbands have influence over city planning decisions. He uses these relationships to fast-track permit approvals. That's a serious accusation. Can you prove it? I have documentation of multiple affairs, including testimony from one of his victims. I also have evidence that permit approvals coincided with the timing of these relationships. Why are you telling me this? Because I don't think you know what kind of man you're dealing with. Blake's methods might get results, but they're also illegal. If this comes out publicly, it could destroy any project associated with his name. Chen was quiet for a long moment. Send me what you have. I'll email it tonight. Mr. Masters, if this information is accurate, it changes everything. I know. I spent the afternoon compiling evidence. Jennifer's statement, photos of Blake with various women, a timeline showing the correlation between his affairs and permit approvals, financial records showing unusual payments to city officials. By evening, I had a comprehensive dossier that painted a clear picture of Blake's systematic corruption. I was uploading files to email when Vanessa came home. Eddie, where are you? Kitchen. She appeared in the doorway, looking haggard and confused. I heard about the break-in. Are you okay? Peachy. Do you know who did it? I looked up from my laptop. Take a wild guess. Blake wouldn't do something like that. Wouldn't he? Your boyfriend's got a lot to lose, Van. Desperate people do desperate things. Blake's not desperate. His business is thriving. Is it? Because I just sent some very interesting information to his investors. Information about his business methods. Vanessa's face went pale. What did you do? I told them the truth about how Blake obtains permits, about his affairs with married women, about the systematic corruption he's built his career on. You can't prove any of that. Actually, I can. Jennifer Walsh was very helpful. So was Carol Henderson, once I explained Blake's pattern to her. Carol Henderson? You didn't know about Carol? Or the blonde he took to lunch this week? Blake's got quite a stable, Van. You're just one of many. Vanessa sat down heavily, her face crumpling. That's not true. It is true. And now his investors know it too. Eddie, you don't understand. Blake's business? If it fails, a lot of people will lose money. Important people. That's not my problem. It will be if they blame you for destroying their investment. I closed my laptop and looked at my wife. Really looked at her. She was still defending Blake, even after learning about his other affairs. Even after he'd probably ordered the destruction of my workshop. Vanessa, do you hear yourself? You're more worried about Blake's business than about what he did to us. What he did to us was inevitable. Our marriage was already over. Was it? Or did Blake just convince you it was? She didn't answer. Here's what's going to happen, I said quietly. Tomorrow morning, Blake's world is going to come crashing down. His investors are going to pull out, the city council is going to review his permits, and the women he's been manipulating are going to tell their stories. And then what? You think that will make you feel better? I think it will make sure Blake doesn't hurt anyone else. What about me, Eddie? What happens to me? I studied her face, looking for some trace of the woman I'd married. That depends on you, Van. You can stand by Blake and go down with his ship. Or you can cut your losses and try to salvage what's left of your reputation. It's not that simple. It's exactly that simple. You made choices. Now you live with the consequences. I left her sitting in the kitchen and went upstairs to pack a bag. I'd be staying at a motel for the next few days until the dust settled and I could assess the damage. But first, I had one more email to send. The subject line read, Blake Rourke, Pattern of Corruption and Fraud. The recipient list included every member of the city council, the mayor's office, the local newspaper, and Blake's business partners. I attached Jennifer's statement, the photos, the timeline, and the financial records. Then I hit send. Blake wanted to play hardball? Fine. But he was about to learn that even failed comedians could deliver a killer punchline. The only question was whether anyone would be laughing when the smoke cleared. Epilogue. The last laugh. 3 weeks later, I was sitting at Barb's Tavern, reading the morning newspaper and enjoying the first peaceful moment I'd had since this whole mess started. The headline read, Local Developer Facing Federal Investigation. The article detailed Blake's systematic corruption, his affairs with married women, and the web of influence he'd built to fast-track his development projects. 3 city officials had already resigned, and the FBI was reviewing every permit Blake had obtained in the past 2 years. Blake himself had disappeared, along with what remained of his investors' money. His development company had filed for bankruptcy, leaving dozens of creditors and several half-finished projects. Quite a story, Barb said, refilling my coffee cup. Quite a story, I agreed. Any word on your wife? Ex-wife, as of yesterday. The divorce was finalized. How do you feel about that? I thought about it. Relieved, mostly. Turns out being married to someone who thinks you're stupid and worthless isn't as much fun as it sounds. Barb laughed. Who would have thought? My phone buzzed with a text from Richie. Blake's Tesla just got repossessed from the impound lot. Thought you'd want to know. I smiled and put the phone away. Detective March appeared at my elbow, looking tired but satisfied. Eddie, mind if I sit? Free country. Tom sat down and ordered a beer, even though it was barely noon. Just came from the federal building. The FBI wants to talk to you about Blake's business practices. What do they want to know? Everything. How you figured out his pattern, what evidence you collected, who else might be involved. Tom took a drink. You did good work, Eddie. Professional quality. Thanks. You ever think about changing careers? The Bureau could use someone with your investigative skills. I laughed. Thanks, but I think I'll stick to fixing boats. It's more honest work. Tom grinned. Can't argue with that. After Tom left, I walked down to the marina to check on my boat. The insurance settlement had allowed me to rebuild my workshop and replace most of my equipment, but I was taking things slowly, being more careful about who I trusted. Mrs. Hawkins was waiting for me at the dock, looking excited about something. Eddie, dear, you'll never guess what I heard at the grocery store. What's that? Vanessa's been fired from her marketing agency. Apparently, her association with Blake made her a liability. That's unfortunate. Is it? After what she did to you? I thought about that. A month ago, I would have been pleased to hear about Vanessa's troubles. Now, I just felt tired. She made her choices, Mrs. Hawkins. Now she has to live with them. Very philosophical of you. I'm a philosophical kind of guy. Mrs. Hawkins patted my arm. "You're a good man, Eddie Masters. You deserve better than what she gave you." I got exactly what I deserved. I just didn't realize it at the time. I spent the afternoon working on my boat, replacing a faulty fuel pump and checking the electrical systems. It was peaceful work, the kind of problem-solving that had clear solutions and predictable outcomes. As the sun started to set, I packed up my tools and prepared to head home. My phone rang as I was walking to my truck. "Eddie? It's Jennifer Walsh." "Jennifer, how are you?" "Better, thanks to you. My husband and I have been following the news about Blake. It's helped us understand what really happened, why I was so vulnerable to his manipulation. I'm glad. I wanted to thank you for giving me the chance to tell my story. It was scary, but it was also liberating. You were brave to come forward. We both were. Eddie, I hope you find someone who appreciates what a good man you are. Thanks, Jennifer. Take care of yourself." After she hung up, I sat in my truck for a moment, watching the last light fade over the harbor. Blake was gone. Vanessa was out of my life. And the people who'd enabled their corruption were facing consequences. It wasn't the ending I'd planned when this started, but it was the ending that made sense. I drove home through the quiet streets of our little coastal town, past the yacht club where this had all begun, past the hotel where Blake had conducted his affairs, past the condo complex where he'd lived his carefully constructed lie. All of it was behind me now. My house looked different somehow. Smaller, maybe, but also more peaceful. I parked in the driveway and sat for a moment, thinking about what came next. I was 42 years old, recently divorced, and starting over. It should have been terrifying. Instead, it felt like freedom. I walked to my rebuilt workshop and turned on the lights. Everything was organized and clean, ready for whatever project came next. On my workbench sat a photo I'd found while cleaning out the house. Vanessa and me on our wedding day. Both of us young and hopeful and completely unprepared for what marriage would actually require. I picked up the photo and looked at it for a long moment, remembering the man I'd been then. He'd believed in happy endings, and second chances, and the power of love to overcome any obstacle. He'd been naive, but he hadn't been wrong about everything. I opened the workshop's back door and walked outside, breathing in the salt air and listening to the distant sound of waves against the shore. Somewhere out there, Blake was probably planning his next scam, and Vanessa was probably blaming everyone but herself for the mess her life had become. But that was their story now. I was writing a different one. I went back inside and threw the wedding photo in the trash, then sat down at my workbench and opened my laptop. I had work to do. Boats to fix, problems to solve, a life to rebuild. And for the first time in years, I was looking forward to it. The joke, as it turned out, really was on them, 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 on them.